It was 1978, and I was 17 years old. I grew up in Jasper, Wyoming, near the edge of the Wind River Range. We were extremely poor, and food was often scarce. My father would send me out every weekend to forage for anything edible. That Saturday in July was scorching, much hotter than previous years. We had no fan or cooling system, so we simply endured the heat, drinking copious amounts of water each day. I packed a jug of water, a meager lunch, and headed off into the mountains. It was a 10-mile trek to my foraging spot, so I always left at dawn to return before nightfall. The morning was eerily quiet as I walked along the dirt path leading into the wilderness. Normally, I'd encounter a few travelers or hunters, but that day it felt like the world had emptied. The silence was unsettling, a quiet that I have never felt again. The day was unproductive. I found little to eat and no small game to hunt. As dusk approached, I began the long walk back home, disappointed and tired. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows when suddenly a sharp pain pierced my lower back, sending me sprawling forward. I fell to my knees and to my horror saw a long black shiny claw protruding from my abdomen. I turned to see my attacker, but was struck hard in the face, knocking me unconscious. I awoke being dragged by my leg. My vision was blurred from blood, and I could barely make out the figure hauling me. My body was limp, unresponsive to my frantic mental commands to fight back. It felt like hours passed as I was dragged through the wilderness, the rough terrain tearing at my clothes and skin. When I felt the air grow cooler and the darkness deepen, I realized we had entered a cave. The creature dropped my leg abruptly, and I lay still, my body throbbing in pain. A small fire flickered nearby, casting eerie shadows on the cave walls. The stench of rotting flesh filled the air, making me dry heave. I blacked out again, overwhelmed by the pain and the nauseating smell. In my dreams, I saw myself across a campfire, hanging upside down, being skinned alive by a monstrous creature. It used a crude knife to peel my skin, and I screamed in agony as life drained from my body. Around me were other skinned bodies, lifeless and grotesque. The nightmares were so vivid that I could almost feel the pain. I woke to the sound of a violent commotion. My eyes, still blurred, made out two dark figures fighting. The struggle was fierce and lasted several minutes, until one fell lifeless to the ground. The victor thrashed around, clutching its neck as if gravely wounded. Fear gripped me as I lay there, unable to move, tears streaming down my face, certain I was next. Hours passed, and I regained some movement. I sat up slowly, my eyes adjusting to the dim light of dawn filtering into the cave. The fire had died, and I saw the two creatures lying still, along with several decayed bodies. The smell was overwhelming, but I knew I had to escape. I moved as quietly as possible, fearing there could be more creatures nearby. Emerging from the cave, I found myself on a steep mountainside. Carefully, I descended, my vision still impaired. I walked for hours, crossing rugged terrain and icy streams until I stumbled upon a dirt road. Exhausted, I collapsed in the middle of the road, losing consciousness. When I woke, I was in a hospital surrounded by nurses and doctors. My vision was clear again, and they bombarded me with questions about my identity and how I had been found. They told me I was lucky. The wound had narrowly missed vital organs. I lied, saying I had been injured by a branch while scavenging for food. The truth seemed too unbelievable. The shock hit me when they told me where I was. Jasper, Wyoming, over 50 miles from where I had last been. Found in the Shoshone National Forest, I had somehow traversed an immense distance while unconscious. My parents, who had hitched a ride to the hospital, were relieved but bombarded me with questions. I repeated the lie, still processing the horror of what had truly happened. Weeks passed, and life returned to a semblance of normalcy. One day, an elder from the local Shoshone tribe approached me, having heard my story. He invited me to share my experience, and I hesitated but agreed. Over lunch at a local diner, I recounted every detail. He listened intently, never showing surprise. When I finished, he spoke quietly. "You encountered what we call the Wahila, a man-eating creature from our legends. They have hunted our people for generations, growing smarter and more elusive. You are fortunate to be alive. Many are not." His words sent a chill down my spine. The validation of my terror was both a relief and a confirmation of a nightmare. I never ventured back into the wilderness after that day, the memory of those dark figures and the cave haunting me forever.